Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the VFX Nomads podcast. We're here with everybody's favorite German compositor, Sebastian Schütt. But I have to say, now that I'm living in Germany, I probably can't call you my favorite German compositor without being stabbed in the back at work later. So I'll say that you're my favorite German compositor who is not currently living in Germany.
Covered yourself. Nice, Tony. You're not getting sued or anything. You're not getting fired.
So I guess actually jumping off that point right off the bat, when was the last time you were in Germany, or when did you move away officially for work?
Let me think about it. First of all, I appreciate the last name pronunciation. I know you're taking German lessons, so I appreciate the umlaut pronunciation.
I had it on my hand.
Germany, I was there actually last summer. I was taking quite some time off, a month in Japan, where I actually met up with G. And then 2 weeks Germany. And that was, I think, the first time that I went back in summer for quite some time, a couple of years.
After COVID, or basically?
I went back home after COVID, but it was mostly around Christmas time, to hang out with the family and all that. But then you really don't get the full Berlin experience. So I'm from Berlin, right? So summer is like quite different than winter, obviously. And so that was the first time for me going back home in summer again, which was exciting. It was really awesome to see an experience again.
And for people that don't know, Sebastian has quite a big rap sheet of of places he's been, countries he's lived in. When was the first time that you ended up moving away from Germany? Was it London?
Ireland, actually.
In Ireland?
Ooh. Yeah. That was 2010, I think, end of 2010. For Game of Thrones season 1 back then.
Wow.
Screen scene in Ireland. Yeah. That was the first time being away from home also, for like a longer time. And from then on, it kind of like started. I never saw myself as like moving away from home. I don't know. I was always very close to home, and then the only child, just living with my mom. So I don't know. I always looked at my friends when they went abroad for like a year during school times, and I was like, man, how can you do that? It's crazy, And then I don't know. Once I got the first experience, I was like, oh my God, I love it. Just learning about different cultures, living in different cities, just experiencing different things. It's just awesome. It was just contributing to the overall passion as well, right? And your drive.
What made you move then? Because that's quite a brave move, right? Like, and why Ireland? I guess because there's other places you could have gone. Was it just an opportunity, or what happened with that?
Yeah, it was an opportunity basically. It was actually luck. It was I was working just before that was my first kind of like major movie job. I was still kind of like an intern junior. And when that ended, everybody kind of got asked to move along for the next project to go to LA. So the project I'm talking about was in Germany. It was Anonymous by Roland Emmerich, a Shakespeare movie. And everybody was like, step by step got asked, oh, we have something big coming up. Do you want to move to LA for like a really long, big project? But I still had to go to school, or like I still had to finish my bachelor thesis. So they knew I had to kind of like stick around in Germany, or like at least in Europe. And I was talking to the VFX supervisor back then, if he knows someone that is looking for, another compositor. And he was like, oh yeah, my friend Ed in Dublin, like they're working on this TV show based on a book, and like dropped the name, and I gave him a call, and he also asked me actually if I know more people that would like to join, right? So I was asking around in the team and my friends, and everybody's like, Game of Thrones, what is that? That sounds so strange, Like no, I'm good, Like I'm moving to LA with them.
I don't want to work on a shit Lord of the Rings film. What the hell is
The thing is, in the end, that project in LA suddenly got dropped. It never got greenlit, and then people moved their signed leases, whatever, bought cars, and suddenly the project didn't happen. And and then the project in Dublin ended up being Game of Thrones. So suddenly those people I asked before, some of them I remember like calling and then like, oh shit, later on when Game of Thrones then, or after the first season aired, right? And they were suddenly all were like, oh my God, I want to work on it. And most of them
hype
on it, so it's nice to share that now. But that was basically luck and like quite short notice as well. And also like, I remember back then I mostly learned in Fusion actually compositing. And the deal was for that project when I called the VFX soup and then he told me like, there will be a nuke show. And I think I only had, I don't know, maybe like 1 to 2 months to go or something. I was like, okay, and I had it, that was the other project already ended. So I had like 1 month off and I'm like, okay, I promised him, I promise you, you will never notice that I never worked in nuke before. So I just like sat down every day and like learning like crazy.
Wow.
And
how did you learn it back then? Because I think nowadays there's more information out there. So like, how did you learn nuke? Did you open the book or like what was it?
I don't remember. I think there were a couple of, I don't know if it was digital tutors back then or something like that, or we had a bunch of tutorials like in the uni back then that we also shared, so yeah, I can't remember, but I know I had a stack full. Like I had to like really schedule it throughout this month to like go through all of it.
Do you reckon it would have been an easier process nowadays?
What to learn?
To learn nuke?
I mean, yeah, totally. But I don't know. Like I keep thinking about like constantly, like I know people talk about, oh man, if I would have had the resources that I had, that I have now, if I had them back then, right? But I also feel like there's so much right now that you're easily overwhelmed, right? And it's even harder now, or like maybe it's the same now in the end. You have more available, but then it's harder to like filter through, and you're wasting a lot of time maybe by watching the wrong thing or just getting pulled and dragged into directions that get you off your first initial path maybe. So I don't know. Yeah, I find it a bit
that's true
difficult, but
I think that the problem nowadays is not a lack of resources, but a lack of credibility or not knowing who to go to basically to listen to, because it's flooded sometimes with certain at least kind of the beginner level stuff, and then you might be learning the wrong thing from the start. So it's really you need to, I guess, get some recommendations or something from people to know who to.
Yes, it's happening in every single subject in every single industry. So it's not just a new thing. We're just in an overflow of information that's the internet and
But
I have a follow-up question with the Game of Thrones. Was Pixamondo working on the first season, and did you have the choice between Pixamondo and Ireland, or was that later on that Pixamondo started doing the dragons? Because I remember they were a big dragon company.
That was later on, actually. I think as far as I know, it was only us and Blue Bolt. And that was mostly, I think it was just the two. And like,
did you get to come back for another season at Pixamondo for that or anything?
No, never actually. Yeah, I did never return to Game of Thrones.
I think Screen Scene did almost every season, didn't they? Or at least a good majority of them.
That would make sense because it was filmed majority in Ireland, right?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
I do think that...
I remember getting a letter from them about working on the last season. So it's mind-blowing to me that you're telling me that you worked on the first season with them. That tells me that like maybe every other season in between they worked on as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they still got their share of work on it.
Do you keep in touch with like the Irish, your Irish, like who are maybe are still there? Because I personally, for me, from what I've been hearing and seeing, I kind of feel like it might be the next VFX hub a little bit, given like the tax rates and things there. And I know there are a few big companies that maybe wanted to move there, but there wasn't quite enough talent. But do you still keep in touch with anyone who's there, kind of? And like, do you think the scene's grown since you've left, or is it stayed about the same?
I mean, I still keep in touch here and there with Ed, that was the VFX supervisor back then on season 1, and here and there I always like recommend friends whenever, for example, a friend from Germany moved to Ireland recently as well. So I try to get them in touch and that kind of stuff, but I don't really know what's going on, in the VFX scene over there. But I don't know.
But the companies have maintained themselves, I guess, and have stayed about a constant size. I guess they haven't grown, or
Yeah, I mean they grew actually quite a lot after that, right? So they have a long list of work now. Got Emmy nominated a couple of times as well, and I mean really proud. Like it was such a small team back then. I try to remember, but probably less than 15 on the screen scene side maybe. And
because it was mostly DMP and comp work, I guess, back then, right? It was less CG, I think, for the first one, and because I know Blue Bolt were doing a lot of the DMP wall and stuff. So,
yeah. Although we also had and that's why I'm also so thankful to the company and like still in touch with them. Like something that really pushed me or motivated me. I mentioned that I had to learn basically Nuke crash course really quick for this project, and back then kind of like acknowledged it, and I was like trying to like work really hard, and the biggest shot that we had back then was actually kind of like almost full CG. It was just like a plain battlefield basically, and then there were a few tents there, practical tents and Lannister tents, and then extended tents, crowds, horses, all kinds of stuff. So that was a super big shot, and I kind of like looked at it from the beginning, I was like, oh my god, if I ever have the chance to work on something like that. And he kind of knew, and by the end, when we got to that shot, he actually gave it to me, and I was the one that was the least experienced in the company, because he saw how much effort I put into it and learning it, and really engaging and so passionate about it. He gave that to me, right? And I don't know, like I'm so super thankful for that. That pushed me so much even after that, that somebody can believe in you that much, and that it kind of like paid off.
I think this is something a lot of juniors make the mistake, and even mids and seniors, they kind of almost don't ask for shots or make it clear that, hey, look, I would love this shot if possible, right? Like you can totally ask, like you've got nothing to lose, and they're not going to be annoyed by it. And actually, I think the supervisor or producers are more likely to give you the shot because they know you care about it, right? And it's like, yeah, this guy's not going to go home until the shot's out. I mean, speaking of that shot, were you glad you asked for it, or when you were midway through it, you're like, fuck, I wish I'd never done this shot because it's a pain in the ass. You like open up fusion on the side quickly, knocking out some tents, or how was the experience of working on that shot? Did it up your confidence?
Doing pre-comps and fusion.
Exactly.
Where did this come from? Don't worry about it.
Like, how was the experience of doing that shot? Did it get your confidence up, you felt, or was it a bit of a pain? Or?
It did. I mean, it was also nice, because we were so small. Like it felt like a small family. So all the other compers came by and looked at it, and also kind of like being proud that I got that, and giving their input and all that was super helpful. So it was not really. I know sometimes it can maybe end up a little bit competitive or even toxic, maybe, when there's a fight or like a battle, for the good shots. But back then it, I don't know, was a very nice atmosphere. So I didn't feel like too much pressure. But towards the end, I think I was the last one actually working still, on the show, on a shot. Like, well, the others, I remember like the last 2 days or last day, already kind of like, wrapping up and like, oh yeah, like cheerful and all that. I'm still sitting there. Oh my God. And then I didn't know when to stop. Like I think I can still improve this. I can still improve that or something, right? Where there's like, just submit something, but I don't know. Then in the end, I didn't know when to stop.
Oh man, I have to tell you guys something really funny. So when I studied VFX, so I was studying engineering, and I was doing my own videos and learning some After Effects stuff, and I watched a reel for a VFX course in a university next to my house, and what made me want to study VFX was one Game of Thrones shot with tents and a full CG thing, and it might well be that specific thing that you're talking about. So you might actually be the reason that I actually decided to go and study VFX.
Sebastian created Adrian.
Oh my god!
Here's the origin story.
You made stamps, Sebastian.
In the VFX Nomads universe, this is the start of the.
That's a really funny story, Adrian. Maybe all of us have a kind of a story about one time we saw a breakdown, either before we started VFX or maybe even for a specific company. One of the reasons I work for Trickster is because they had a breakdown. I think it was an Iron Man 3 shot, if that's the one where Iron Man saves everybody in the sky. And I remember all of the fire that was coming out of Iron Man's hand was all just like cards that were tracked and cards in Nuke. And they were breaking it down and you could see that there were cards and they were not like, Houdini simulations or anything. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that company must be so good at comp. Like they're doing stuff in comp that a normal place might do, in 3D. And that made me really want to work there because I was like, I could probably learn some stuff from them. But
speaking of fire, by the way, there's a cool story. This might be bullshit, but there's a cool story about the Balrog in Lord of the Rings, right? So the big fire monster. And apparently they were simulating it for real at Weta, and it kept putting itself out as it walked because it was like it's walking so quick and so big, it would just put all the fire out. So apparently they had to just hack that with a load of fire on cards and all sorts of stuff, just parented to it. So it's like, the amount of stuff that's cheated in comp is ridiculous. I think that a lot of people don't know about.
Well, Image Engine's another really good example because they were the first ones that I saw using like position to points or something on District 9. And that video like blew up on the internet, and I was like, oh my god, they must be the best compers on the planet.
Yeah.
And that made me really want to work there. And you are working there right now, right? Seb?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, Sebastian, do you think it's useful? Because obviously you've worked at a few companies now. Have you found it's useful moving to different companies to kind of like grab the best tricks from each, if that makes sense? Because I kind of feel like you end up with a bit of an unfair advantage sometimes because you see how all these places have kind of figured out how to do the same thing and you can pick the best one. I mean, have you felt like that as well in your career or?
Totally. I mean, but it also kind of like then, like went full circle again, basically. Like when, I started in a super small company in Berlin and, like very much family vibe, no tools, no pipeline or anything, right? And then like switching through all those companies, like you say, you acquire like a certain skill set, obviously, of like the tools that they have or the way they just do things. But also very quickly, you learn that you can never rely on them switching or like going to the next company, right? So then you're kind of like, or at least I did, then removing it slowly again, stripping it down to the basics and trying to stick to them in a way, just to stay flexible, because I realized at some point, you get a little bit of tunnel vision. And so it's kind of like it's kind of like a mix, right? Obviously I'm taking from every company, I took something like, away technique wise or, approaches and all that stuff. But yeah, the more I switched around, the more I try to stay simpler and simpler, with my approaches.
Yeah. I think everyone ends up getting like that. So you it goes full circle, right? It's like you get to a mid where you're complicating things to a lot, and then you go full circle back to being a junior where it's just like merge node to next glow node. Done.
But I think that's great.
Even even like just coming back to Image Engine really quick, when I said like full circle, because that's like now like I think 2.5 years almost at Image Engine, reminds me a lot of the atmosphere that I felt back home in the small company that I started at. So that's the same thing, right? You're going through all those companies and they're like, oh, I want to work in a bigger company. I want to work at ILM and all that. And then you go through that just to like, for you, be able to filter out what you really need, right? So it's really about like finding yourself as well, kind of like a journey. And it's just funny to see that it brings me back, almost like you want to get back home to your mother or to your home, like of that
roots.
Warm feeling to the roots, and then you're ending up in the same kind of vibe. So it's interesting to see. Yeah, but you get it out of your system. You have to get it out of your system, anyways, right? In order to find out.
Earlier, you mentioned that there's a lot of learning media out there, and it can be hard and daunting for a person to pick the right ones. So for like a junior or somebody that's getting into this world, what recommendations would you give for finding the right material? to learn from?
Well, I mean, the whole approach that I tried with Split the Diff a little bit with my YouTube channel, right, was to help people, like to pull them down a little bit, instead of like pushing them and pulling them in all kinds of direction of like, look what crazy features we have now and AI here and this and that there. And it's more like, I don't know, like pulling them down to the basics. I don't know, almost like a slingshot move or something. Like you have to be pulled down first to then like snap back up or something. And it's tough because I can see like my stuff is also very niche and can be like a bit like complicated or very triggering because it's like I put everything in a very condensed format. But I think that was the reason, because just looking, not even like looking at juniors, but like I said, even for me, like it's sometimes getting too much, like there's so much stuff out there and it's going in every direction. So I always, in those moments when I feel overwhelmed, I always go down back to the simplest thing, like the basics, right? And I think that's why I would, encourage.
It definitely shows in your videos, because I feel like I know I'm here with three very talented educators as well, but your videos have a very nice simplistic approach, and I think they're very easy to stomach and understand, especially for somebody who doesn't know too well. Everything from like the way you explain stuff to like the humor to your thumbnails are like the best. But just the overall design sense, like your intro and your little icon and stuff, it's good stuff, man.
Yeah, you have a real talent for explaining difficult topics in a digestible way, I would say. That's a really, we were just talking about this on the last episode of like different approaches to teaching, and I think you pretty much combine Josh and I's techniques.
Yeah,
but like you're going really deep and you're shotgunning it. Yeah. With like, I watch your video and I'm like, how did he explain all that in 8 minutes?
I mean, how much planning do you do?
I
how much planning do you do? But like, are you thinking about how best to explain things and the order in which to explain it? Because the order is a big deal as well, I find. Like if you go straight to one point, then you haven't got the context before and things. Like how, I mean, looks like a lot of effort's gone into that each video. So is that the case? Like,
yeah, totally. And it's the same thing with like, I watched the last episode recently, actually, as Tony said, I think, you think like, okay, it's going to be a 20-minute video or something. And then suddenly, by the way, do you hear the cat meowing? Actually,
that's what that is.
It is complaining about like, what are you up so early?
Hey,
hello. Wow, you are chunky.
Well fed.
Tomorrow. So it's like, usually same thing. Like I think like, okay, I guess I can break it down in 20 minutes, but then the next door opens, and you fall into that rabbit hole, right? And I don't know, sometimes I'm getting really hyper focused then, and I have to pull myself out, or like I usually fail with that, but my fiance has to, try to to pull me out. But I don't know, it's getting so deep, and then it's getting, because I have that approach, like I said, I need to break it down. And then I realize, okay, I think this is still not the basic, like I have to get one level down. And yeah, I don't know, it's and then it's like double the length or something, right? And I know then it's sometimes hard to digest, because people are used to those like very short formats, attention span obviously is a thing, but I still have to do it. Like I still have to, for myself, my own sake, I have to put it out in that format to have everything said, like you said, Tony, in the last episode as well. You have to leave with the feeling like this is everything I wanted to say about the topic. And it was actually interesting when you mentioned, I think you were talking about like that you are your number one viewer basically, or you're producing it for yourself, right? And that's also how it started for me, the same way, right? I need to put it in a format for me to understand as well, and to have it condensed. And And I think it totally makes sense to have that in mind. I remembered from my, after school, I worked at a radio station for a little bit. And I remember in the studio, they had their target audience. They had a full description on the wall. So every radio host is aware of the target audience. And the funny thing, it was not like a thing from 25 to 35 or something like that. It was the description of one person.
Wow.
So, and everything. So whenever they're talking to people on the phone, maybe as well, and all that stuff, they're aware of how close this person is to the actual target audience.
So does that mean you've just got the description of you all around your desk to remind
mirrors
just to remind?
Oh, and that's interesting.
But I think that goes to a really good point where if you start making stuff that you don't like, I think you start getting a problem.
If you're doing it for likes because you think it's going to be the most shareable thing, that's a screw. You're going downhill pretty quick. I think it's the thing I found as well with the making things very condensed, which was kind of like a byproduct I didn't realize, is that actually like VFX supervisors love it as well, because if they just want to quickly know about a topic, they're short on time and they'll watch it. So it's the amount of times I've had kind of like feedback from, I thought I was making it for kind of like people starting out, and actually VFX soups who haven't got any experience in comp are like, I just wanted to know about keying in 20 minutes or something. And it's is that out of interest? Where have you got feedback from maybe departments or people that you didn't think would watch it, if that makes sense? Have you kind of had anything like that before? Like a DMP artist or something who got a lot out of I know you did one which is kind of like the color wavelengths fading off, or like the in the water and things. Like that could be applied to so many different aspects, I guess, other than comping. Have you felt like that at all?
I think from lighting, I sometimes get a lot of feedback, and then like friends that work in lighting department suddenly sending me a message, hey, by the way, like one of your videos got just shared in our like company chat or something, or like department chat, that kind of thing, I think. And that's nice to see, because that's exactly the approach again, breaking it down so much to the basics that it's more like a fundamental global explanation of things that can easily be translated to other departments as well, right? So that is actually a big compliment, I find. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about the Split the Diff series? I think I might have heard this from another interview of yours, but you said that it was kind of born out of COVID, I guess. So does that mean, was it something always on your mind and you just didn't have the time, or did something kind of inspire you during COVID to just make a channel, make this type of series?
I think it was definitely COVID. Without COVID, there would be no Split the Diff, sadly. And also moving to Vancouver, where I'm currently living at, right, is, I think, after having lived in London for quite some time, I think was very important, because London, I feel like London, I keep missing London, right? It's just like every corner, like you take a turn as something interesting waiting for you, and it's so, I don't know, like it triggers my passion a lot, over there. Like there's always something going on, something unexpected, and always something to do. In Vancouver, it's a little bit, you know what you're getting, basically, like, so you can rely on consistency a little bit. And then, sorry, buddy. And he really needy today. And but you're always distracted in a way as well, especially London. There was always, after work, you end up going to the pubs and all that. And here I had more time, and especially during COVID, and I think that's the reason, is like suddenly I had time to reflect, and time to think about, like, myself, and like who am I actually in that big construct of, like, VFX, and in a time where also things get really anonymous already, like, because we're so many people working on projects, right? And you just end up being like a little name or having a little contribution. And now suddenly with COVID, you're like even like taking another step back. Suddenly you're at home alone, even smaller. So I don't know. I just wanted to like give back in a way as well, keep up the communication somehow, because I was also feeling more lonely during that, like because due to that step back. I'm usually quite a sociable person and, like need to interact with people as well. Plus that reflection of like, like what am I? What can I do outside of that? And, I don't know, like suddenly finding some warmth in this, going back to basics approach, suddenly, going back to the roots, like you said, I don't know, it grounded me a little bit and like, put me back in, almost like meditation a little bit, like totally going back to that. And
nice, man.
Yeah,
I can see a few important points here. So one is like, which is amazing, and it's common to all you guys, which is like when you converge in being in the end of the Gaussian bell in three things at the same time that you need to be. One is the creative aspect, two is the technical aspect, and three is the being a good communicator. Like all of those three you need to nail in order to have that profile that you're able to explain things that are technical in a creative way, which is appealing, and at the same time be able to explain it. And I think that's super valuable whenever there's anyone with that profile, because it's so rare at the same time. And you guys are, like, it's not. And like another example is this guy, not sure if you know him, 3 Blue 1 Brown from the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I know.
Like the math. That's amazing, man. Like you get one of those profiles and it's suddenly able to bridge so many knowledge gaps. And that takes me kind of to the, just the fact that you're explaining it to yourself in the past. I think that's, in some way, like if you're covering all those three areas, you're in some way communicating to a lot of people if you're in that spectrum there. And, well, I guess that also means that for any single profile, if people tend to communicate to themselves in the past, there's going to be some people that resonate more with you because those people are probably explaining to themselves in the past. But then you get the master 3 check boxes, and then that one's like able to get the information across to so many people. So I think that's super common.
That was the mistake I see a lot of universities make, to be honest with you, because they would say, "Oh, we had a VFX supervisor in teaching them all keying last week," and it's like, "You sure?" And I'd go in and they wouldn't know how to key because either the person hadn't keyed for years because they're a VFX soup, or they weren't very good teachers, right? Like maybe you've been doing it so long you've forgotten what it was like to not know, and it's impossible for them to kind of put their minds in the mind space. So yeah, I guess Sebastian, is there anyone that you looked up to in terms of teaching in other industries at all? Like, are there any techniques you've stolen from, like maybe the idea of your videos was kind of like, right, I really like how this person described this in this industry that I'm also interested in, or is there anyone you look up to in that case? I mean, you're your favorite German compositor, so maybe you looked up to yourself, maybe.
Who's your favorite German compositor?
Oh, yeah, we need to ask. Yeah, who is your favorite German compositor? This was a good tone question.
I know it's Sebastian, definitely, because he's talking to himself in the past. So
it's mid-level Sebastian.
Yeah. Sebastian turned herself as his future.
But, yeah,
all the mirrors in his room.
But are there any teachers at all, or any techniques that you kind of have taken? I mean, I just nick a bunch of stuff from other industries. I don't mind telling people. So, like, is it the same for you at all?
Not that I'm aware of, at least. No, sorry, I don't really. Yeah, not really, because it's I don't know, like it started so quickly, right? To like becoming, like I said, just a database of like, or like calming me down, researching, then putting it out, that I never really thought about.
Yeah, you did it for your own enjoyment, right? And scratch your own itch. So it wasn't a case of like, I got you.
Yeah.
And do you think there's anything G should teach anyone? Because we've been trying to convince G to teach, to start.
The second tutorial that G knows to.
Deeply. Yeah, I know. G.
What could we do? You've got, in all fairness, we did mention your lighting and your webcams got better, so maybe you could teach people how to set up lighting, G, as well. For the
He knew he was up against Sebastian, so he stepped up his game.
That's exactly what happened.
He knew it.
I just need the bokeh now. I thought about hanging paper cutouts of bokeh behind me.
I mean, I guess the question I've got is like, how is Vancouver, like the Vancouver lifestyle compared to London? I've heard it's a bit more outdoors in Vancouver. I've also heard it rains more in Vancouver than London as well. Is that true?
Whoa.
I think so, or maybe a different rain. Yeah, I think in London, from what I remembered, like a lot of times it felt more like, for the better lack of terms, but like somebody spitting in your face, like
that's London. It probably was.
No, that's actually
that was just the British.
People, our teeth are bad, and while we talk, spit a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Just like little droplets here and there, right? It can be quite extreme. Like, to be honest, the first, I think when I moved here, it was in September. I think the first week, I already I had to work from like almost the first or second week, I think. And I had a lot of appointments scheduled for like apartment viewings and all that stuff because I was still put up in a hotel, I think, for the first 2 or 3 weeks. And it's raining like crazy, so it was really annoying to go to all those appointments. And I remember there was one apartment looked really nice. I was looking forward to it, and I was walking to work, and it was raining. And I thought I was prepared with my clothes and everything, and good shoes that I brought from back home, and the sole just came off.
Oh god!
It was just like the sole suddenly is just sliding off, and then I was like almost working bare feet in the rain, and I couldn't go to that appointment. I had to cancel. It was ridiculous, I don't know if they believe me, but I was like, I'm really sorry, I can't come and view the apartment because my shoes just off.
You're not getting that.
They knew.
Classic excuse.
The fourth time that
When I landed in Vancouver, it was November, and someone told me it's been raining for 45 days in a row, nonstop. And I looked at it; it was literally that. But then there's one thing I really liked about Vancouver, and it's that on the summer it stops raining for some reason, and it's just sunny for 3 months, or at least that's what I
remember hearing people going snowboarding after work and stuff as well in Vancouver. Is that a thing?
Yeah,
as well.
That's such a big difference as well. With where you have the more gathering style hangouts. Let's go to the pub after work in London. And then suddenly here people okay, who wants to share a car or jump into my car? I'm going up to the mountain right now, and all these outdoorsy stuff in summer and in winter, different things, right? And it's nice. It's I still missed hanging out like that in London. It was so unconditional. I don't know which term to use there, where you didn't even have to ask anyone. You just knew you're going to the pub, and
you just knew everyone was alcoholics in London. It was obvious. It was I mean,
I feel 80% of our conversation, Sebastian, were at the pub.
Yeah, and that was nice to just have that that consistency, knowing you can go there. You don't even have to ask. There will be somebody that So here you have to organize it a little bit, and even for those activities, obviously, you have to find the right people. Okay, those guys are going snowboarding. Those people are doing barbecues, or something like that. So it's a little bit harder maybe to get around. And also companies, I don't feel like they connect outside of work that much as compared to London, where okay, let's go to the DNEG pub, and then let's have a beer at the Framestore pub and all that, right? So here it's very rare, they're a bit more spread out, but also not, there's also some hubs where you have a bunch of companies and some really nice breweries right next to them, and I keep saying man, if that would be London, this thing would be packed on Friday with
alcoholics,
with people.
I mean, the thing I'd say though is London, I think it might have changed since you've been, because a lot of the facilities are moving out of Oxford Street, kind of that area, and they're going more towards Holborn. So I know ILM and Framestore have moved kind of further right. DNEG's still in the same spot, and NPC's still in the same spot. But I think, there was this golden age where everyone was right next to each other, and you could just, as you said, go between all the pubs, and then you'd hear everyone moaning about certain projects, you know what they were, and it was like, yeah, as you said, it used to be really, really great. I think there is less of that, obviously, work from home things, but yeah, I'm surprised they don't do it in Canada quite so much. Out of interest, is there any advice, given that you've moved countries a fair bit? Is there any advice you've got to people who kind of haven't moved country for work yet that you'd suggest, like looking for flats early or visa stuff, or is there any kind of big advice with that? Or negotiating a hotel to stay in while you're there? Like, what kind of stuff? Again, if you were starting out, what would you do or suggest?
I think the hotel stay definitely. I mean, I would think that's pretty much a given by now. Like, if you move across, across the ocean, I guess.
How long do they generally put in a hotel for? Like a month or 2 months or 2 weeks, or how long you got generally?
Yeah, I usually got initially 2 weeks, but I think for the first time when I came, I negotiated to get like another week added because I knew that
the shoe will get destroyed.
Yeah, you knew that your shoes were out. You're looking down, being like, "My shoes aren't going to last a week. I need
3 weeks in a pair of shoes."
It's all about negotiating the shoe.
So it was just like I know, like apartment hunt, and especially also here the prices are quite high. So I knew like 1 week more can help you with that, figure something out. Because if you then sign a lease for like for a year or something, and then you're stuck with that rent, then it can also be a bit, annoying. And usually also you start right away, like, I mean, if they hire you and then they put you up in a hotel and then 2 days later you start, I mean, you need a little bit more time to figure that out. Especially, I think when I started, I was like right on crunch time. And then, then you only have the weekends, even the weekends you work, but you have to like squeeze in those apartment viewings.
I remember back in 2012, a lot of the LA scene was very, I guess, bitter or jealous towards the Vancouver scene because a lot of the facilities were sending work that way. And then when a lot of the LA studios ended up closing, almost everybody in film just ended up going in that direction. So at the time it was looked at that like Vancouver was a really booming VFX scene. I wonder if it's still as booming now as it was, I guess, back then.
I mean, not right now. Yeah, I mean, right now, obviously, we're all affected a little bit by the lack of work due to the strikes, right? So here also, like, a lot of layoffs happened and are happening. But in general, it was booming quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, there was a time the last years, when there's like so many projects going on. I think it's still blooming. There's still a lot of stuff, a lot of work out there for sure. And I hope, I hope it picks up soon.
Have you been hearing any news of kind of stuff, the gear starting to turn again and projects starting to get greenlit, or how's the scene looking at the moment?
Mostly I hear about like, fall. I think most companies are talking about fall regarding a ramp up.
So a bit later.
Fall.
Because I keep hearing in Europe it seems to be like March,
summer.
April-ish.
It's spring, summer, yeah.
Got you.
Oh man! Yeah. So for anyone looking to move to Vancouver, there's one really important piece of learning that I wish I had like before going there.
Shoes?
Of course. Apart from shoes, that's also
shoes. That's the biggest.
So not sure if we talked about this one on the podcast. Did we talk about the driving license in Vancouver before?
No.
That one's okay. So maybe in Germany it's easier, but in Spain, for sure, if you have the Spanish driving license, then when you move to Vancouver, you can use it for 3 months once you're there. So for 3 months, you're a complete danger on the road because stuff is different. Like the lights are on the other side. There's like intersections completely different. You're a danger, but then once you get through that barrier and you survive, after 3 months, you cannot drive anymore. So you have to take the driving test. And so I did not drive through the first 3 months. So I had to learn the driving, and I had to do the theory exam, the practice exam. So the whole thing. And and for the theory exam, in order for it not to be super difficult and just moderately difficult, you had to give up your Spanish driving license, and they would literally in front of your face just rip it off and throw it to the bin, and completely random.
Is this legit, Adrian? Did you give them your passport as well and all this stuff? They were like, no, was a real thing? It was a guy in Ali who
they literally take your driving license and they just throw it away. And then when I came back to Spain, I went to the police to get a new one, and they were like, "Did you get robbed?" I said, no, they took it in the government.
I got robbed.
So the thing is,
by Trudeau.
Pretty much. So my only suggestion for anyone from Spain or other countries that have the same rule for a driving license would be, there's one thing you can purchase. It's called the international driving license. So you just pay like 10 euros or something like that, and then that one works in Canada. So you don't have to do all of that stuff. So
Adrian, the thing you miss, man, is you're a compa dude. You should have made a fake driving license in Nuke, printed it out, taken it with you. Done. That's all you needed. You're a compa.
It would have definitely been worth
it's
the
just
risk.
A4 paper.
I mean, at least for them to throw that one away.
And then make a YouTube tutorial on how to make license.
We got to start a series, how to use comping for evil.
Oh my
just
just the voice changer.
Sebastian, I'm guessing, so you said you were from Berlin, you lived in like London and Ireland. I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably didn't have a driver's license when you got to there, but you probably had to get one from scratch by now, right? Because you've been there for a while?
I actually, in Vancouver, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have one already in Germany?
I had one already in Germany, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But we luckily have Germany has a kind of like a deal there, I guess, with Canada. They're just swapping it basically. So I think I had to go through like 3 to 5 questions or something like that, and then like, oh, yep, passed. And then they're taking your German license, and then you get the
Why
Canadian
did they take
one.
your German license?
And then apparently you will be able to swap back if you need to. Like you have to go back to the German driver's license.
Oh man, I literally looked at the scissors doing like.
they do it like stare directly into your eyes.
But pretty uncomfortable. Like, why?
Welcome to Canada.
That's so weird.
Wow.
Have you taken any nice trips since you've been in Vancouver? To some mountains or?
Yeah, a lot. And then even again, like during COVID, like because tourists were not allowed in, right? That was also part of that, reflection phase, and all that was just like getting out there, traveling a lot. And usually during summer, it's like so full of tourists, especially in the Rockies when you go like further into the country. So we did a trip there. It was so nice to be sometimes just the only one, like on that mountain. And but yeah, in general, like we're taking quite a bunch of trips. Actually, there's always something new to discover nature wise here as well. Yeah.
I wanted to go back a second to what we learned, or what you learned in Vancouver. I remember I learned kind of negotiating a little bit when I was there, or I learned the power of negotiating. We were talking about hotel stays. I was in a hotel. We all started like together in a big group of maybe like 20 or 30 people at some emergency project, and a bunch of us were in the same hotel. And we had like a giant king suite or something for each person, and they were only going to put us in for 2 weeks. And at the time I was in Vancouver, I was dirt poor. I was like the poorest probably I've ever been, and I was like, anything I can do. So like the lack of funds made me go up to them, and I found somebody that was in the same situation as me, and we went up to them together, and we said, hey, could you extend both of us for an extra 2 weeks if we just have a 2-bedroom suite instead of each putting us in our own room, like having the luxury suite, 2 luxury suites, just put us in like together. And they were like, because for them, it's way cheaper, right? So they were like, yeah, no problem. But if we had never asked, they would never have done that. So it's kind of thinking of all these creative ways to make both parties happy. And I was kind of learning that, like, just ask, just try to come at it from like a practical point of view of like, what works best for the company and you. And usually if it's within reason, they'll probably say yes.
Out of interest, do you guys ever, because I work for ILP at the moment, I get paid in Swedish krona. Do you guys think at all about like exchange rates at all when you go work in other countries? Or not really? You do. G's nodding his head. So you're, because the dollar's going up against everything, right? So G's super poor in US.
But well, I also the yen has been dropping a lot, and they've really been using it to market towards tourists because like you said, the dollar goes a long way here. But also working for British companies has been pretty cool.
Because you're earning pounds and the yen's dropping. Yeah.
The mighty pound.
I remember that. I had a 10% pay cut in a month because of the exchange rates, and I was like, this is painful. It's always something to bear in mind. I guess it's not an issue, right, if your costs are all in that currency, but is that something you look at, Tony and Adrian, or not, and Sebastian, or not really?
Luckily, like the euro and the dollar are pretty similar. Like there's probably 5% or something difference. So I tend to keep whatever I'm earning in that country and not try to exchange it or anything like that. So that's my kind of philosophy. If I'm earning something, it's probably good enough for that country that I'm in. So I try not to like start transferring stuff and losing like hundreds of euros or something to go back.
In my case, like I was first in London and I was quite junior still, so I had like barely enough for a room and the food, so I didn't care too much about what I would get out to my country. Then in Vancouver, that got better, but still, like I was in that growing phase, and I was just looking forward and didn't care too much. Then in New Zealand, I actually got to start saving actual money. Also, I mean, overtime and stuff helps, and Weta helps as well. And yeah, of course, that was New Zealand dollars. That's something quite different to euro. So the exchange rate was like from 1.5 to 2x. So yeah.
You said you're Wolf of Wall Street style, just sellotaping the currency to your body, right? On the flight back, Adrian, you said before, right?
Josh, in New Zealand, they check if there's dirt on your boots. I think they would find money strapped to your inner thigh.
But actually,
in New Zealand, I I sent to Spain, like via the TransferWise or some of these companies, I sent like enough money for a summer off. So I spent the whole summer just spending money at hotels and food and bought all sorts of stupid things. So yeah, actually, when you're like working so much overtime and you're in that dynamic, you don't care about money in the sense that you're working so much that you can afford to like buy the more expensive food and throw stuff at Amazon and stuff like that. But then you suddenly stop working and you're in that same inertia, and that's dangerous. You can spend quite a lot.
At NPC, there was a stereo guy who started on Jungle Book, and he came from Weta. He was a senior like stereo person who developed all his tools. And he was like, at one point, he was doing such crazy hours and was making so much. He literally bought a microlight and 2 Red Epic cameras and was just filming stereo stuff. And like, it was insane. It was like,
the early version of the Vision Pro.
It was like, he just didn't know what to do because he was just doing nuts hours on this like Weta 1.5 rate. And he was like, I just bought a microlight and filmed 2 cameras. And I was like, wow, London is very different.
I love the post-project Weta stories that come up from those exact situations. Like a friend of mine went to Antarctica after, I forgot which project it was, like Planet of the Apes or something like that. And I know, like, I researched that cruise, and it's like in the thousands how much it costs.
It's like $6,000 or something like that. It's like
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's like crazy, yeah.
Because I think you start from like the bottom of Chile or Argentina or something, and the whole thing lasts for like 2 weeks.
That's when you claim it as an expense.
Yeah, it's a big tour. Like you can't really go on your own, right? There's no booking.com for Antarctica. It's like one tour. You go to one place. Everybody sees the kind
That's
of
when you claim it as an expense, though. There used to be a guy at DNEG who was a texture artist, and he would just take flights places and be like, I had to go to take a picture of this tree to sell on thingy. And it was just like tax expensive. So you go to Antarctica. Yeah, we need it for a next project, right?
Take pictures of
penguins, exactly. I had to spend the $6,000 for that one picture of a penguin. It's
I mean, this is bringing up an interesting point about like what you're spending your savings or your money on. I mean, I've always thought, I'm in this area of the world now, so yes, I do save some amount of money, like whatever it is percentage wise, and then all the rest of it, I'm considering like that as like travel money or like exploration money or something for that kind of region. And I've always kind of been thinking about that. in different areas. I mean, I don't know, Sebastian, do you feel like Vancouver for you is something that's going to last like 20 years, or are you still in this kind of phase where you're like, oh, I'm going to make the most of it every day that I can?
I mean, we actually, my fiance and I, we bought a place last year here, which basically, creates the path for us of like staying here, right? And at least having this as our like central hub, basically. And I mean, I did a lot of like transferring money back in the beginning as well, which I now had to transfer back again in order to get the apartment. So I should have like waited a little bit longer for that, but I don't know. I see it like the mix. It's just like the mix that you have. Like I don't see that in any other city here of like, the nature versus activities, and it's also growing now. There's much more stuff going on than when I moved here. So it's turning out really, really well. And I don't have any other city in mind that I experienced that have this interesting mix of like, you can either go city path or nature path, and within like a quick switch, right? Like I said, like after work, you can just like, I don't know, it's just less than an hour and you're up in the mountains and you can snowboard, right? Or you go to the bar next door.
Yeah,
I love it so much over there. Like I think it's probably my favorite city in the world that I've been so far.
Wow.
The reason I'm in Madrid is not that it's my favorite city; it's the combination of the people and the food and the sun and all of that. But Vancouver, man, I would have stayed there. If I had not gone to Weta, I would have stayed there probably long term. Just like being able to just at any given point in the super modern city with skyscrapers and everything, 30 minutes walk in any direction and you're out of the bounds of that, and you have like infinite trees and seas, and man, quite nostalgic about my experience there. So I can totally get why you're there. Colin.
Tokyo is a bit similar.
For you, is it? Yeah. How is it for you? The place that you're currently at, is that for you like a temporary place, you would think, or is that something by now you call home?
I'm going to ask G first. G, I mean, that's an interesting question because I know it's very hard to assimilate into Japanese kind of culture. So do you consider that like a long-term kind of thing, or are you still kind of every day like this could go away next month or something like that, like kind of this awareness of your situation? I don't know if that makes sense.
I've been trying to escape to Hawaii for the past year.
Hawaii?
But yeah, just because, I don't know. And I mean, I've loved the city life. I've done it for so long. But these days, I'm kind of gearing more towards something a bit more slow paced. And that happened when I went from Tokyo to Kyoto, actually. That being said, there's just something about Japan that's so magical, dare I say it. And anybody that like travels here and sees it from the outside, it says the same thing. Then they get in here and they're like, oh my God, it's everything I expected and more. I mean, Sebastian, you were just here, a few months ago. But so when people come here, they go, yeah, like it's everything I expected, or it's beyond what I expected. Well, living here on a level higher than that is, I still get that same feeling. I still like look outside every morning and I'm like, am I really in Japan right now? So as long as that feeling is still there, I don't think I'll be leaving.
Yeah. Hasn't faded for you.
So for you,
Not
prefer
yet.
Kyoto over Tokyo then at the moment, just because it's a bit more... I mean, there's loads of tourists there, right? Is it annoying with the amount of tourists in Kyoto, or is it's okay to...
There are tourists in the tourist spots.
That's true.
So there's tourists in Trafalgar Square. There's tourists in, Piccadilly Circus or whatever. Yeah. I usually don't go to the Piccadilly Circuses or the Trafalgar Squares of Kyoto. They have pros and cons. You talked about, Sebastian, how in Vancouver you can go snowboarding an hour away. Well, in Tokyo, you can also go snowboarding an hour away. You can also go surfing like 2 hours away. And in that sense, Kyoto doesn't have as many of those luxuries. So for those reasons, I like Tokyo more. But for like just a chill, aesthetically beautiful lifestyle, Kyoto wins.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, we got.
I have to pay.
I know. I was just going to say that we've got a friend called Ash who's over in Tokyo right now, and he's going out every weekend. It seems, right? Like doing all sorts of amazing stuff, and it's it's super cool. It's super cool.
Yeah. I have to pay respects to Sebastian's homeland, the fatherland of Germany. I really like it here. I like it. I know you're from Berlin, and I'm living in Munich, and they're worlds apart. They might as well be a different country in some ways. But I really, really enjoy it. I think there's a certain calmness. Like they've really held on to some of the values of the past in a way. Like they're very strict in the sense like grocery stores still close at 8 o'clock at night. Sundays still everything's closed except for a few like beer gardens or grill houses or something like that. But it like forces you to be a bit slower or to schedule yourself in a way. And just specifically Munich. I also lived in Vancouver until 2012 or something for a few months. But the nature thing was really important, like the city plus nature. And even though Munich is like 2 million people or so, there's nature everywhere. Like there's like trees growing out everywhere, there's parks.
Yeah.
I don't know that many cities that you can swim in the river of. Like it's pretty fun.
I mean, you can swim in the Thames, but
and then the mountains are only an hour
great,
away.
Right?
So.
You can swim in the Thames, but maybe you don't want to. So how clean is it then? Is everyone going swimming then?
So clean.
Wow.
Yeah, you can swim. Everyone swims in the river. It's like super clean. Comes straight from the mountains. It's like ice cold. You can go hike some of the most beautiful Alps, like in the south. Anyways, it's a beautiful place. I know it's different from Berlin, but yeah, I quite like it. I quite like it a lot here.
I like that too. I was working at Trickster as well, and I do they actually still have that? I remember there was that ice cream shop.
Yes.
How
was it called?
It has like
the Mad Hatter one.
Yeah, I forgot the name. Like they had always some crazy flavors on.
Yeah, the Mad Hatter. Yeah, they have the beer flavored ice cream.
Of course.
They had like an onion and salmon flavor, and I think one was like meatball with mustard. Then they even had like mustard that you could like real mustard that you can add on if you want to, and like it's a good concept. It's like they have 2 crazy flavors maybe, and the rest is like regular ice cream, and they give you the option to sample, right? So most of the people, they always had long lineups, and then they come like for that feature of like, oh man, I'm going to try that the crazy flavor of the week. But then they usually go then for like chocolate or whatever, right? So they're not really maybe selling those crazy flavors, but that's what bringing in the people, and then they go for the regular flavor. So
my favorite ice cream place in the world is in Munich. It's probably not that one. It's Balabeni. So for anyone that watches this, man, that's a serious 4.7 in Google.
A serious 4.7.
That's the one by the
yes,
museum.
Yeah, that
the,
one.
The university. Yeah, I know the one. That always has a queue out the door around the corner. Like
all handmade.
It's really good.
Oh, man.
What's the flavor combo?
They only have like 8 flavors that they revolve. So there's not like a huge shop. It's like 8 really solid flavors, and they just stick to it.
That's where
chocolate
the quality
ginger.
is.
Man, that one.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm going back there.
Yeah,
there is this.
Okay.
The best I've ever had is so in Hokkaido, the North Island of Japan. It's known for milk, and there's one area that has like cow pastures everywhere. Well, there was this one cow pasture / farm that had its own ice cream place, and they had one flavor, milk. You see milk flavored ice cream like on a menu of ice cream. You wouldn't pick it, right? You'd go for like something more conventional or whatever you're attracted to. This milk flavored ice cream is the best lick I've had in my life.
Someone's going to cut that bit, by the way, G, and you're going to
straight from the cow's teeth. Just
that's getting sent straight to HR.
You just squeeze the udder.
Yeah,
milk flavored ice cream. I like it.
Yeah, I it sounds weird, but it doesn't taste weird at all, man. It's like a heaven on your tongue.
I mean,
I wonder how much of the because we don't use the Nuke interface in German. It's like I guess everybody knows enough English that they're just. I don't know if it's the same in Spain. If everybody's using the Spanish version of Nuke. Or
I don't know if there's any translation of Nuke at all. Like there is for Adobe and
there must be, right? I think I've seen like a Russian version of it before. I was watching some Russian tutorial. And this guy was like going all the menus, and they're all in acrylic, and I was like, "What?"
There's only one translation that I would use from Nuke, and it's the Hackbarth one, the Matt's happy faces. Did you see it? Like all the notes with the happy face.
Oh, the one that like he collabed with Shizuka, the Japanese comper.
Yeah. Well, the nodes had faces. Yeah.
Like little anime emojis. But I've always found it strange using a program called Nuke here. Anyway.
Well, you feel like you can't Google anything.
I mean, anyways, I said, like, if you're like, imagine you're traveling and then you're having, your notebook or whatever, and then like the airport security is like, oh, can you please start a computer? And then you have like desktop icons, Nuke, Flame, Inferno, like all that kind of stuff. I know a friend like I worked with, like he was working on a super detailed model of the White House, and then imagine you also have that on your computer as well,
A White House model in Nuke.
Yeah, no, I think he had some like plans or something like that because he was modeling it in 3D. So then, they end up like finding some blueprints of the White House programs like Nuke. And
they see the file name that it's just like White House blueprint.nuke.
Oh, that's the moment that the government knocks on the door, right, Danny?
You get the knock finally. All the applications. Sebastian, you wrote down losing and finding your identity, or keeping your identity. What did you mean by that, and what did you want to discuss about this?
Yeah, I was interested how you deal with that as well. Like I said, when I had that reflection phase during COVID as well, and also with like working from home, a lot of time to think, and it's just like a constant. Like looking back, at my career, and then like moving between the cities, and then moving up in positions and all that stuff. It's always for me not a struggle, but like definitely a challenge to kind of like find your or redefine your persona in a way. Like for example, I mean it's hard to explain, but for example, like just moving cities. I don't know, Berlin. We dress in a certain way. There's a certain vibe, how you talk to people and all that stuff. Then you go to London, you're wearing maybe, actually I'm wearing the fur of my cat here, see? But you're wearing, like maybe button-up shirt, everybody looks a little bit more fancy in London. So you want to be part of that as well, right? And it's like a constant, for me in the beginning, a constant battle of like, where do I belong? This is interesting, and it's not because I want to blend in or something, but I'm just like thirsty of like getting to know this culture, for example, in when we talk about cities now, but then also of like learning, of like, okay, where do I want to manifest myself in like, that realm of like VFX or compositing? What is it that I should specialize in? Or then moving up the position, what type of leader do I want to be, and all that. I feel like this a constant like rebalancing of things, of like and defining. I mean, I guess also for new people coming in now is a little harder as well. Like with working from home, I guess there's nobody to compare yourself to, like if you're not going into the studio, and you're not like reflecting, oh, how is that person dealing with stress, or what is that person doing after work, or just what does that person think? Usually you're just exchanging little chat messages maybe. So I guess that was what I meant with the topic, and was interested in like your, guys' view on that topic. Or if you also sometimes feel lost a little bit, and then you have to like rethink again, or actually I got, where put yourself back on the path, like where do I need to go next? If that makes sense.
I think
But
mentioned that something like Ernest Dios, who's a comp or VFX now at Trickster, kind of he was mentioning how like sometimes you just need to kind of like waste time and just learn about stuff because you enjoy it, right? As well, and less kind of thinking about this. I need to kind of like target this particular thing for a strategy or a reason. I mean, I think for a lot of us at the moment in VFX, in terms of compers, we're maybe fighting between should we learn about Unreal or learn about AI, maybe. Those are kind of seem to be the two big things that are coming at some point, and we don't kind of know which ones, which. But I mean, Sebastian, how do you do it? Like, I mean, I guess it would be the same thing of like your topics you do for your tutorials. You pick them because you need to scratch an itch, I guess, right? Or
yeah, exactly. And it's also like to hold on to like, to see who I am, because like I said, like in those projects that we're working on nowadays is we're working on a lot of like repetitive tasks, right? So like we throw a lot of people in there that work on the same thing. So it's like reducing creativity a little bit, right? It's like match this to this person's shot here and there, but then match this guy to this shot and so on. And so it's sometimes hard to see like, where do you stand? Like, am I still creative? Like what did I even contribute something to that? Was I just like, matching to things or stuff like that? So sometimes when it gets too like overwhelming for me, then like I said again, then I'm like, okay, now I have to do something that brings me down. And then, for example, math, that is just, there is no wrong or right, or like, I mean, there's only wrong or right. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, there's no,
you're like subjectiveness to it, basically.
No feelings.
Yeah, exactly. And no feelings. Right. So that's one way of like, I guess, like grounding myself and yeah, I don't know. Finding back to myself, because I feel like it's so easy to like get dissolved in that pool of things. And not just with that, like even social media as well, you get so many influences. Like I like photography a lot, right? But then sometimes if I scroll too much, or if I see too much published, suddenly it really throws me off. And then like, oh no, I don't want to take photos. Like, why would I take photos now? There's so many photos out there that I just looked at. Like, why do I need to take another photo? And then usually I have to go a step back again or something, right? And then I'm looking into the tech of the camera, or like, I don't know, I don't know. It's yeah, I haven't found the best solution, but I know that definitely the doing my own stuff after work is giving me that. And it's sometimes funny because it's even, you would think like, okay, especially during days where you work a lot, maybe overtime, and the project is very stressful, that then you would need to find some rest, or maybe like just sit on the couch and watch like some stupid TV or something like that, or go outside on a hike or something. But even then, the more I do this, I have to compensate it with something that I'm in control of, if that makes sense. So then doing my own tutorials, for example, okay, I'm setting my deadlines, I'm setting my topics. I, can go as deep as I want. I can switch to creative. I can switch to technical. Yeah, that's a way of like also keeping the passion alive. I feel like, because that's probably also one of the hardest things over the years, right? To keep that flame burning.
You just have to let it flow, right? Like regarding the identity thing, one thing I see is kind of a pattern that, for example, with football, there's many people that do not like football, and then they move to another city. I'm talking local scale. And then the moment they move away, they become a complete fan of their home city football team. And they're like super, like finding ways to engage with what you were before, or your roots or your origins in some way. In my particular case, like one thing that helped me a lot through the years is like, yeah, I never like got too much like dragged away. In some way, like my partner was coming with me, and we shared most of the hobbies. So we did not have too much of a need of really integrating within the any culture. Also, the hobbies like parkour, for example. I was doing parkour, so in every single country that I went, I found the local parkour community, and I found that was like an amazing way of getting to know that like the people in that country. But at the same time, it's not, it's not just two different countries, but we share something. So there's like way more common ground to to get to break that barrier at first. So I was doing, even in Vancouver, there's like an amazing parkour gym. It's Origins, it's called. It's really close to Image Engine, actually, and DNEC. It's amazing.
Oh, okay.
and I actually met some ILM and NPC people going there to parkour classes and stuff. So that helped a lot. And also in the passion and what you kind of gravitate towards. Like I always gravitated towards what I was enjoying in that moment in some way. So yeah, I think that's really dependent on your specific moment in time. But yeah,
I think the things that you do when you don't have to be there help ground you and kind of help bring an association to your identity. So when I work too much, like you mentioned earlier, it's easy to get like dissolved in whatever's going on. One statement that's always grounded me is that I'm not defined necessarily by my job. It's a bigger definition is like how I treat people that I work with, or how I treat people that I give direction to, or how I react to a superior position giving feedback to me. Those kind of things that maintain character are really important. But also the things I do outside of work that I'm passionate about. So, Adrian has his hobbies, I have mine as well. And those are things that like really, like I said, just ground and keep that identity.
I mean, I guess for me and my stuff, it's almost been, I can kind of like use the same ethos, I guess, throughout. It doesn't really matter on the discipline. So like mine is always kind of, I want to be open with what I know, and then also remind people that we're not doing anything serious. And those two things can happen whether you're a senior, right? Or a lead, I'm leading now, or a comp soup, whatever. Like, as long as I keep sharing what I know, and then people realize that, hey, like these people aren't that different from me, right? Like they're just regular people who also know a bit more about comping than me. I think that's, so that's the nice thing, I guess. I feel like I haven't necessarily lost that identity ever, because I can just senior. Okay, here's what I know now as a senior. Okay, and I was doing this as a junior, or leading. Here's what I've learned as a lead. So I never feel like I've had to change that. But I mean, this is something we talked about on a previous podcast about burnout. We mentioned how it's good to have something that you're in control of, right? So that, because the annoying thing at work is it's not necessarily hours, but it's when you get changes upon changes that you don't see the point of or don't understand. And that's the bit that burns you out, I think, as opposed. So as you mentioned with your tutorials, you're in control. I want this to be this way. Great. Done. It's, so yeah, I think that's kind of the balance of it. I mean, Tony, is it the same with you with your stuff as well? Like obviously you're learning German at the moment, so, and you've got other hobbies as well. So
yeah. But yeah, it's, I mean, those are two the teaching part of it. I think you're getting a meaning, I guess a meaning or fulfillment, I suppose is a better word. You're getting so when you're comping, you're getting a fulfillment from achieving an artistic goal or achieving a project like check mark. And then when you're making a tutorial, your fulfillment is coming from somebody else having benefited from the thing that you put out. So it's like a different avenue of fulfillment. I think that's important to become a more fulfilled person, I suppose, or more happy person. It's like a different avenue of happiness, I guess. And going back to the identity thing, I mean, this is a question I've had a lot because I've moved a lot of places and I've been away from home quite a long time. So, you're a person moving through the world, and you kind of have to choose what you're going to drop and what you're going to pick up. And it starts to make you question things that you probably would never question about yourself, because if you're living in one place for your whole life, there's no reason to question those things. But then when you go head to head up against a culture that is saying a complete different thing than what you grew up with, suddenly you have to question whether or not that thing that you grew up with is actually true or not. And then that leads to the question, what is true and all this other stuff. But I think it only matters like really what is good for you. And if you've convinced yourself, I think this is a good way to do something, or I think this is right or makes me happy or whatever, that's what you have to hold on to for yourself. And then if you find something else to replace that, good. Then you've kind of like swapped it out. So I don't know if that touches on what Sebastian's kind of talking about.
One thing it does touch on is what we were talking right at the beginning of the conversation, just the moving companies and learning each company's ways of working and stuff. I think that I felt just that, like from moving through different companies, at some point okay, they work in this way, and there's some things you just acknowledge that, or just believe that is the best way to do something, but then you're in a different place, and then suddenly, even if there's movement of people between companies, still like each company has their own like suites of like techniques and tools, and for me, I felt like many times after moving 4 or 5 companies, I started to make a switch like, so this is really similar to that other thing like from 5 years ago, but then this doesn't make any sense if that makes sense, and the opposite is true. So you had to go like one level deeper, and then you suddenly find that connection, and then like clicks something. And I think that's pretty much the same thing, that you're forced to look at different things from different perspectives, and that from doing it repetitively, you start to see patterns below that, and that's like at least what I'm seeing from, for example, you two, Tony and Sebastian, like the way you like lay out your content and stuff. It's clear that you've been through many phases of looking at things and making those connections, because otherwise you would have not gone there in some way. So it's literally the same thing, just reimagining the basics.
But you have to be open-minded to live in another place, I think. I mean, you have to be, because otherwise you'll just be brutally made fun of. I remember when I was in London, I was living in a house of, I think it was like 30 British people, like some from Scotland and Northern
British
Ireland,
people.
but mostly English.
In one house?
Yeah, it was a big like communal house.
Okay.
It was like the, Big Brother or something. And it was this big communal house. And like, I was the only American, and they were just every day bashing me. I thought it was hilarious, right? But it's just funny. So even the way you speak is different, and for that, it wasn't different. It was wrong, according to them, of course. But it was quite funny because you're constantly reminded that like what you think was correct and totally normal to some other person is just not normal at all. But that relates, as you said, like different ways of comping or different ways of doing pretty much anything, like parkour or anything you want to do. It's like different schools of thought, maybe, I guess. And you have to just be open-minded to question whether or not the thing that you already know is something worth keeping or worth exchanging.
I remember this hit me when I was in Stockholm. I was there from like January. I was like there for 3 months, and I thought, oh, okay, it's going to snow a lot in Sweden, so they must be just prepared for the snow, and that's how they get by. And they're not that prepared. They just don't moan about it, basically. And in the UK, it's like one little bit of snow. Oh, we can't go outside, or the trains are cancelled. And there, it's like, yeah, we just get on with it, basically. It's yeah.
I'm just imagining Sebastian going to the office like, is it normal for your shoes to fall apart in the rain? We just not complain about it. Just
for all of you, because you're all, I think, more traveled than me. Like, do you think it's advantageous at the start of your career to travel to different countries and different companies? Would you say because you're kind of like forced to know who you are as a person, or?
Totally.
Yeah, I feel so, definitely. I mean, like I said, like you pick up so much, and also like Tony said, like just getting an outside perspective onto your country, right? Because, for example, I remember going back to Berlin the first time. Like I think when I moved to Vancouver in 2016, I had like 3 years maybe where I didn't go home, and I was during those 3 years, I was telling people about like how much I struggled a little bit with the what I called like the protocol a little bit of like having a conversation or starting a conversation here, how are you and all that, and versus very direct Berlin where people let you know when they're pissed off, basically, right? And they're letting you know right away. So I was always kind of like defending that and like, yeah, but this feels more truthful of having that direct way of saying it. But then staying here for 3 years, and then suddenly I go back home to Berlin, and the first thing I notice in the bus that takes me off the airport is like, oh my God, how rude is that? Like, I don't like everybody, the way they were talking, right? And I have to say, like, Berlin is obviously different from like the rest of Germany as well, a little bit in a way, as is London, probably from England, right? So I'm not saying like it's Germany wide, right? But Berlin, we call it Berliner Schnauze, so Berlin snout or something like that. And I was like, what? Like, why do people even want to engage with you if you're like that direct or something, right? So,
or how did you not notice in the past, right? You start looking at it from a different point of view.
Exactly, yeah. So now I'm like so happy for the way we start a conversation here in Vancouver, because it gives you, it might be a bit super, what do you call it? Superficial in the beginning, I guess. But but it gives you all the foundation to then start off and continue. You can make out of that whatever you want, right? It opens the door. It doesn't close it like maybe the person in Berlin would do with one sentence of like, leave me alone or whatever, right? So things like that you only get to experience once you take a step back, right? And from the outside.
It reminds me, very recently I was in Taiwan and I had joined this tour group. And in that tour group, there was people from all over the place, but there was a German couple there. And at the time I was binging the TV series Dark, if you've ever seen that.
Yeah.
I look at the couple. I'm like, where are you guys from? They're like, we're from Germany. I'm like, cool. Have you ever seen Dark? And the guy just goes, no. 2-second pause. And the girl goes, you're doing it again. And he's like, well, oh, shit. Sorry, I'm German. In German, we do this. We just say like yes or no. As opposed to like, no, I haven't seen it yet. Da, 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 da. So there's no fluff. It was just like straight to the answer.
Do they have the shit sandwich in Vancouver, Sebastian, when giving feedback? And because in London, it's always the shit sandwich, which is where you go, oh, this looks really good over here. Here's what I actually mean about the shot. But over here, it looks great as well. Is that a thing over there, or is it very different? The shit sandwich is a thing.
It is, I think, yeah. I mean, not always, but I mean, another good example maybe that is helpful for that is I remember working at ILM at some point on a project where it was I don't know, like something schedule wise went a little bit wrong, and I kind of like voiced it in a way in our like group chat or comp chat or something, right? And then also the comp soup actually came by afterwards and then said like Sebastian, like you cannot, like, you sound really angry or something, right? And I'm like, I mean, I kind of am, but I was just trying to like bring it to the point, right? But it came across as like I really overstepped, so I had to really learn to put things in like maybe in a sandwich way, or like in a slightly not, I don't want to say censored. It's just like but it's also helpful. Like I said, like taking that step back. Direct might be the best for you, but not necessarily for the person you're talking to. So it's also nice to get that tap, and say like, hey, maybe adjust it a little bit or something. Yeah. But sometimes it annoys me also, like the German efficiency, as you might call it, or something in me, or the things we used to do when I started things in Germany. And then I just want to get the information out, right? I just want to have the information out, then we can change it. Then it's all good, right? And then I don't want to go through the whole, hello, how are you?
Yeah, I was really shocked when I arrived in. When I arrived in Vancouver the first day, like I was looking for some address or something, probably the hotel, and I asked, like, there was one woman, like a street sweeper. She was like sweeping the streets and asked something, and I didn't realize at first she was super pissed off from her work. But then she turned to me, she got like a huge smile. Hey, how is it going? What do you need? Blah blah blah. Yes, that. And then she turned again, and then she was super angry again. And I was like, wow, this is really weird. But at the same time, I mean, even if it's artificial, like at least they project positivity in some way, and there's part of that culture that I felt quite different from Spain for sure. And even like in dailies and everything. Was there like a website with dailies notes or something like that people were adding to some database? Because I think that was super funny. Like I remember like just reading some dailies notes, and one of them was like, yeah, that flare looks great. Would you mind reducing it by 100%? Or there was like notes like that. There was like some data.
Looks good. Take it out.
As an American, or growing up in America, and that being like my original frame of reference for how language is spoken and stuff, it took quite a bit of getting used to my first gig in London. because of the shit sandwiching. I think it was Jupiter Ascending. That was my. You were on that, Sebastian, weren't you? Yeah. I just dealing with like conventional British versus conventional American soups, how they would relay information. Because in the U.S. we're generally like, I guess our English is a bit more simple, and a product of that is being more direct. Where in the UK, things were always a bit more like fluffed. So when people would give notes, I was used to a simple like, this is too dark, this is too bright, etc. But my first show in the UK, it was like, oh, this looks good, but maybe just a dash of this, and if we could just do this the other way and spin it this way, but I'm not sure if I like that. Having to read between the lines and decipher it all was quite a challenge.
Yeah, I remember there was someone who was, I think it was when I was at NPC, someone was new to London, and they're like, people don't care how I'm doing, right? So, because over here, like, you always say, hey, how's it going? But no one cares. Like, no one cares. That's the icebreaker to start up. It's, it does take a bit. Yeah.
Problem in also ILM when I started here 2016, I remember exactly with that, because that how are you? Because I had both instances actually where I worked towards somebody and then like, hey, how are you? How are you? Right? And like he's asking me, and then I'm like, yeah, actually it was, weekend was good. I was doing some cooking and then this and that. And then I can see already.
They're not there anymore. They just left.
That's scripting part, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I get it. And then, and then next time I had the instance where I was walking past someone, the same thing, like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, how are you? And I like continue walking, and then I like turn around and I see, oh shit, no. He actually like stood there and wanted to have a chat. What is
I find those things so hard. Like, man, it's a real struggle.
Yeah,
that's an adjustment. Yeah, I was walking around 2 weeks in London thinking something is wrong with me because everybody was asking me if I was all right. Like,
you all right?
I'm fine. What's wrong? If you would only ask if somebody is all right in America if there's like they're bleeding from their face.
Wrong.
And then when you have like I was sitting in the metro tube in Vancouver. I remember that one, and someone stepped on my feet, but it was my fault. And they almost fell, and they were like, "Oh, sorry." And it's like, "No, I say sorry, not you." They're like saying sorry for stuff that is the fault of the other person as well.
Japan's like that too, to the extreme.
How is it in working practice in Japan? Because I think like the Megalith is it predominantly like Japanese artists, or is it kind of more multinational, or what kind of culture have they got in terms of internally?
It's gone through phases. When I first started, it was more. I think it was more Japanese than it was Western. These days, maybe it's tipped a little bit the other way, but it's not like one significantly more dominant than the other. It's always floated around like 40-60, 60-40.
So did you get the shit sandwich? Because it was the owners came from London, ILM, didn't they? Or was they didn't?
Singapore ILM. But one is French. The original that I started with, one is French and the other is Spanish, but he also lived and worked in the US. So one was more direct, the other was more sandwichy.
We need the Sebastian Schütt sandwich, right? That's what we need. That's the...
What would that be? Sebastian
Schütt sandwich.
Schütt sandwich.
The Schütt.
Combining all of his countries.
Oh,
the Schütt.
Now it's a balance. He's like 50% more friendly with us. It's like it's smørrebrød from Denmark. It's the open face sandwich. The shit's on top. It's a bread.
Copenhagen.
I mean, actually, I think working remotely, you have to be more aware of that stuff, right? Because it's very easy. I think in the office, you're obviously reading a whole bunch of stuff that isn't just what the person's saying, whereas it's very easy to read something differently. And if in crunch time as well, if people are a bit more easy to antagonize than usual, I generally kind of double down on politeness, if that makes sense, just to cover myself. So, yeah. I mean, are you working remotely at the moment, Sebastian, or are you going to the office much? Or
I'm going twice a week. I'm actually going to the office, because I'm that was also the reason we were thinking of like when we bought the apartment or when we were looking for an apartment. A lot of people moved outside the moment, like work from home got enabled, of course. But we were like both kind of like still want to be able to get into the office once or twice a week, and it's just like a nice walk around the creek here. Actually, 30 minutes. So I'm going in twice. There's not that many people coming in. But we have the option, there's a call-up space. You can either call-up space that we can book, or like maybe for a small dedicated team, maybe just a comp department or for the project or something like that. Or you have like an open space where you can book a seat, and it's kind of like mixed up, which is also nice because I feel like with the work from home, I know you guys talked about it in the last episode, and also the topic of like not being enough of the disadvantages being out there available to people. Just alone having that option to like book a seat and then sit amongst the people from other departments is so helpful now as well, because I feel like with the work from home, you're already, like I said, like taking a step back from everyone, but even more like from between departments now, I feel like the gap gets bigger again. Obviously we naturally have that already between the departments. There's always, first that team thought of like, okay, we as a comp department or we as a lighting department, right? So you already have that dynamic. But now you're not even engaging that much with the people anymore, right? From the other department. So I think that's still a good opportunity to like sometimes book like a hot desk and then sit next to a lighter, sit next to a texture artist or something like that. And it's so that was like one negative point for me that like immediately came up when I watched your last episode of like the department gap becoming bigger. And then another one being that, I don't know if you notice it as well, like when you go into work, I feel like the bond between the people that come in, and you can't really avoid it, like it gets even stronger now, I feel like, than it used to be when everybody came in, right? And so you have that false thought, I feel like sometimes, of like people thinking, okay, like we all took a step back, we're all working from home, so it's the same for everyone. But then again, I feel like there's a bigger gap now between people that constantly stay home and people that come in, even if it's just like once a week. I just remember like last week talking to someone, and one of the days I'm coming in is Monday. So Monday is usually, oh my God, it's a big contrast between like you're sleeping in on the weekends and then suddenly Monday morning get ready to work and go there, right? And I was talking to the other colleague coming in and saying like, hey, are you feeling like tired or right? And he's just like, no, I'm super excited. Like Monday is the day I know a few people come in, right? So I'm really looking forward to it, and that's cool to like see it that way as well, right? It's a change of things that I also like, like just breaking the pattern a little bit, going for a walk, you're coming in, and like I said, that bond is just so much stronger. And actually, why I said it is a negative point is that it's mostly, I guess, a negative point maybe in that sense for the people that decide to stay home constantly. I don't criticize it or anything, right? It's just like a fact in the end. How I experience it is they're like missing a little bit out on that bond. And then if you're working in the office with your team or your supervisor or anything, the trust that gets built up there is way stronger. So tasks naturally will be given to people, and knowledge will be exchanged and all that between those people more just naturally. You can't help, like, how would you be able to control yourself, to trust less or something, So it's not even that you can say like, oh no, it's not professional to have a stronger bond with people that you see. You cannot help, like it just naturally happens, right? So that's a super big point, I think. And
it makes sense though.
It's a function of the amount of information you have about the person, and if you're there with that person, you have way more information per unit.
Well, and also, if you've got a shop where you're not quite a VFX super or comp super's not quite sure on the look, then is it going to be ways you just keep turning around and then you can figure it out together, right? Than someone being remote and having to jump on Slack calls. So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Did anybody see the the behind the scenes of the Godzilla with the director. There was a room full of artists, and the director was on his chair, and he's just going to everybody, one by one behind them, and then he just circles back around and does it again because the director was the VFX soup. So he was just in the room, one big room, and he was just going behind everybody like, yeah, okay, a little more blue, a little more of this, a little more of that. And it was like, exact, like if I guess that's the way how you make a $15 million budget turn into a Oscar-winning film or something. But yeah, that's direct. You can't get any more direct.
You only render when it's approved.
Yeah, that's true.
You just ask him, can I render this now?
I mean, that's like working in ads, man. I remember when I was working in advertising, one of my first films I worked on was Maleficent. And I worked in advertising, and it was a big advert for the World Expo thing in Dubai, I think it was. And the director was the director from Maleficent. And when I was working on Maleficent in film, I wouldn't have ever met him. I had no idea. And in ads, I was literally in a room with him, sat on a sofa behind us. We were just shooting the shit. He was like an old matte painter and all this stuff. And it's nuts again. So it's kind of like taking from the best bits of that ads ethos, right? And they can do so. I mean, it's up for an Oscar, isn't it? The Godzilla -1.
Yeah. I'm rooting for it.
Me too.
But, it's just such an incredible story of the people. But I mean, Sebastian, going exactly to your point about people, the connections getting deeper and that you can't avoid it. I mean, something that I kind of try to do, but like if I'm in control of it, if I'm in Spain or if I took a trip to the Czech Republic recently, and a couple of my colleagues who were living in Prague. And, I make it a point to try to reach out to them to go grab a beer or something or go for dinner. And you can actually make up for a lot of lost time or a lot of lost maybe connection or so from even just meeting the person once or going to SIGGRAPH or FMX or something like that. Like the bond between the people gets so much stronger if you have this common memory or common situation, I guess. And yeah, that's a one way. Even if people are not going to the office, they should really try to mend that gap somehow with some sort of event or some sort of barbecue or something.
Yeah, I think it's on the onus of the company to mostly, like, something ILP do amazingly is they have things called Pirate Week, where they literally will fly everyone to Stockholm, and then you're all in the office, and then you're all hanging out and all this kind of stuff, because they're aware of, like, it's important. Like, the culture side is a massive, massive part of this thing. And also, I think if a company, after COVID, they were crewing up a whole load of people and they didn't have to pay for the office. So just take a small part of what you would have spent on rent and just use it for something, right? To get that culture and stuff. It's, super important.
Yeah, we have these, there's one next week, actually. They're called VFX Stammtisch, and Stammtisch means, like, get together or meet up. Sebastian probably knows about them, but they're not directly organized by Rise, but they're sort of outside of it, its own thing. But they're like every 4 months or so, there's like a location, and things are paid for, like either drinks for a few hours or just so the venue is kind of bought out, and everybody in Munich goes, and they all just meet up, and it's such a nice thing to get everybody together. It kind of reminds me of the London pubs or so, but yeah, that's super important.
Yeah, I think
Man, I want to use the occasion that Sebastian is here to ask one question that, I mean, it's a technical compositor, so that, we need to ask the technical compositor a technical compositing question. So, and hopefully we can do it for other guests. So just a quick one, maybe, The question is, can you recall one trick or technique that you feel like you always know and you use all the time, and people in general do not know, and every time you teach that specific thing, everyone's like, "Oh, that's cool." Yes, I feel like every person has some of those hidden, and yeah.
I think it's maybe not specifically like a technique, but it's just the approach of again comes down to the same thing of like breaking things down to the basic, because I know that people a lot of times, and the cat comes in right on cue, that with all these like approaches, techniques, and also the hardware capabilities that are out there, like going all in with everything, right? Instead of just like taking a step back again and then like, oh wait, I can just use a simple whatever vanilla tool from Nuke, and I will stay way more flexible towards potential client comments, or feedback instead of like just bloating up the script or making it really complicated to look at or to adjust or something like that. I think that's probably something important, because I remember when I was working for like a friend. He set up his own company and had a lot of like junior people working for him in the beginning. And first I was like, I'm still blown away by their skills that they already had as a junior in regards to, like Python, like pipeline acknowledgement, all that kind of stuff, right? They were like setting up their own pipeline there with the junior artists, and I'm like, oh man, like I better catch up with them, like I was really inspired by it. But then clearly it became clear that like all that higher knowledge was kind of like there or triggered, but then all the stuff underneath they haven't gone to, right? And it comes down to the same thing again, like then just showing like simple techniques, simple approaches, or how to deal with feedback that challenges your output or your view on things,
marketing.
Yeah. So I think
yeah,
that's a good one to remind people of.
So,
and just one other quick question from me. Is there any topic that you're currently focused on teaching about for the next thing you're preparing that you would like to do a spoiler about? Or is that super... I'm sure you're working on stuff. But...
Yeah, I'm always having like multiple things running at the same time. It's just hard sometimes, with work, and then the expectation that I have towards myself and towards the quality, right? So I can't I can't just put things out for the sake of it, right? I'm like working on something related to vector blur at the moment. Just examining a few things there, almost like a lab kind of thing, trying a few things out. But I don't really know when I get to it. I mean, that's the thing. Like I set for myself like quite a standard, with what I want to put out there. So I don't want to go below that line.
But this is why I think it's so important. Like you almost have an advantage if you're not doing this full time to pay your bills, right? Because then it's not like, shit, I need to put out a video every month because someone's on a Patreon thing. And that's why I've always been very, not anti that, but it's almost, it doesn't give you the power just to kind of like take your time, make sure things are done correctly. And it's super, super important.
Yeah. Well, Sebastian, thank you for coming on. I think it's and for waking up so early to do this with us. It's always insightful to see how different people's minds works.
For having me, yeah, I really, man, guys, keep it up with the podcast. I really enjoy it. It's so nice, like how you complement each other as well. Like all you guys with the different characters, and it's a really nice show. So it was an honor.
You say that. You say we complement each other, but half the feedback we get, I think Tony mentioned, is that G and Adrian need to talk more. So, and they want us to shut up. So
Adrian needs to talk more.
We need to get him up.
And every single guest we bring, it's like we should have like 5 more episodes with you before we can even start talking about other stuff. Like, yeah,
it's just great to hear different perspectives and different questions and ways people thinking about stuff. So. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, but definitely, if you've got the time in the future, I'd love to have you back, man.
Yeah, and if anybody doesn't know, check out Split the Diff. Is that the only channel? Because it's like split into these different sections, right? But you're different.
You did a short one, right? You did started doing shorter ones, I think. Is that a different channel or is that the same YouTube channel?
No, it's the same. Yeah, there was like Nuke Timeout, and then I had the Unleash the Node, which is like really deep dive. Yeah,
amazing, man. Amazing.
And then the Schütt sandwich is coming up.
Yes.
Series coming up soon.
The Schütt.
Giving feedback.
Right.
Show real feedback. This
it's just him reviewing shots.
Man, that was episode 10.
Hey,
yes, 10
the cat is in the shot.
Bye.
See you guys.